Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar, How Software House Solutions Help You Respond to a Known Contagion. My name is Carol Vidaro, and I'm the Senior Marketing Communications Manager for Software House. Our experts today will present many ways in which you can use your CQ 9000 system to respond to the coronavirus and other known contagions, including the use of an enabling reader to manage personnel through a dedicated checkpoint, and how to configure and run the new contagion report to determine possible contact with infected individuals. Today's panelists are Rick Foke, Director of Product Management for Access Control, Jason Ouellette, Head of Technology Business Development for Access Control and Video Solutions, Ashley Tusignot, Senior Product Manager for CQ 9000. Just a quick note that the webinar is in listen-only mode, so if you have any questions, we'll be taking them throughout the presentation. So please add the questions using the GoToWebinar control panel on the right side of your screen. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the webinar over to Rick.
Thank you, Carol. And again, welcome to the webinar. Please don't be shy with your questions. So basically, I want to start with why we're here in the first place. There's as we all know, there's a fairly special situation going on, and the overall goals that we're trying to achieve, with CQ 9000 and with other types of equipment are fourfold. One, of course, is to minimize surface contact, to help prevent the spread of contagions. Second is social distancing. We've all heard about that in the news, in the public announcements. How can we use CQ to help promote distancing and minimize occupancy of the buildings we control? Third would be to use CQ to help manage special checkpoints and screening routines that end users are setting up to help manage the contagion. There's a lot of tools in CQ that could do that. And the fourth goal here is to provide tools to help in contact tracing. Okay, as we all know, and again, I've heard in the news, contact tracing is very important to help the spread. If you know somebody is possibly contagious, okay, let's go back in history and see where they've been, who they've affected, who they've been in close contact with. And since CQ does a lot of that data collection, it's a good tool to use to get that data back out. So we've been in contact with a bunch of our applications engineers and some of our sales team to collect a lot of different tips and tricks and techniques that have been used with CQ 9000 over the last few months to help in these goals. Okay, I'm not going to read them all off here, but I have organized these into the four different categories that I mentioned, and we'll go through them. So again, please, if you have comments or questions as we go through, use that little question box there, and we'll get to them after each of the sections here. Well, let's start with the, I guess the most basic one is to minimize, surface contact. Okay, we've all heard the term frictionless access control. That really comes into play here, but if you look at the upper left here, it can even get kind of low tech. Here's a new door hardware solution from Assa Abloy, a hands-free door handle. You can use these above the regular door handles, but it gives you a nice way to use your arm, to open the door, not your fingers. Those are simple solutions that, may be apropos here in, this current situation. A lot of our integrators have gotten requests recently for more automatic door opening solutions, so there's no handles needed. Okay, the door opens upon access by itself. Sort of like the disabled door openers, but now applied to more and more doors. Optical turnstiles have been in use for years. That's a nice hands-free way to get through a building. A lot of turnstiles now assume an open position and then only close if a card reject is seen, which is better for traffic flow. And here's one. This is in our Software House price book. It's called the Handy Wave hands-free switch. It can be used for a request to exit device. Okay, you basically just wave your hand in front of it and it closes a contact, which can then be, wired into an iStar for a request to exit, or maybe you just want to, do a special event logic sequence, start it up with the switch. Okay, well, here's a hands-free switch to use. So again, just some ideas here just to get you thinking on how to approach, access control from a, hands-free position. Okay. On the reader side, of course, proximity readers are hands-free by nature, right? Smart card, you don't have to touch anything, just get your own card out. We have seen an influx in interest in contactless biometrics. One that's gained popularity is the Morpho Wave and the Morpho Wave Compact. This is it's a fingerprint reader that doesn't need you to touch the fingerprint sensor. You just wave your hand above the sensor, as you can see in the photo there, and it does a read of all the fingers that it sees, okay? Not just one finger, but all four within a second, and compares to a template and grants or denies access. Here you see it on a parking gate. Okay, so it can be mounted in various different positions and situations there. There's also a Palm Vein reader. Okay, this one is also contactless, right? Just kind of do a high five to the unit a few inches away, and it actually reads the underlying vein patterns in your palm and compares to a template and provides the access decision there. And there's also the idea of reading the iris. Okay, not the retina, that's behind the eyeball, or at the deeper part of the eye. The iris, of course, is the colored part right on the surface there. It's an optical read. There's no lasers getting into your eye. That hasn't been as popular, to be honest, in our recent sales, but we have seen some increase in it. If you are gowned up and only your eyes are visible, then the iris ID might be a great solution there, for hospitals, for example. Okay, and those are, in fact, all these three are fully integrated into Seeker 9000 so that we can manage templates centrally, from the Seeker interface. So looking for new biometrics, you want to look at contactless solutions now. And of course, we have a new contactless solution coming out in a few months. This is more on the facial recognition side, right? The idea would be to stride up to the door, and within 10 feet or less, it'll recognize you and tell the iStar who you are, and the iStar can then make the decision. So it's called the Illustra Insight. It gives you a nice access control type of feedback. Okay, it's not just a camera slapped on a wall trying to do facial. It is a purpose-built, camera sensor with a reader-like LED ring around the edges, so you can get that familiar, red is bad, green is good user feedback. Okay, it also has some nice features like the network connection is on the secure side of the door in a little separate panel, and the camera sensor is just a raw data feed back to this control unit. So it has some nice access control design elements into it. So again, it's coming out in August. You'll see some separate webinars on it forthcoming. I don't want to derail the presentation here, but just keep it in mind as a nice frictionless way to get in the door. Okay. Also, it has an intercom feature that's being prepared for talking back to the workstation, with a speaker and a mic built into the camera module. Okay, so with that, I guess we'll pause. Any questions or comments, Carol?
Sorry, unfortunately, there are no questions at this time.
There are no questions. Okay, well, we'll have to improve that for this next section here. I guess it's so clear that there's no questions, right? Okay, so let's move on to the next area here, which is to basically keep the building less occupied than it was. This is the new normal. We need to use Secure to, to help, spread people out and keep occupancies to a minimum as we all get back to work. All right, so first up would be using the clearance filter feature of Secure to quickly restrict access. So in case you had to, lock down a building quickly, you had to disable all the cards except a certain subset from all the readers or a certain subset of readers. Clearance filters is the way to go. Okay, they basically take precedence over the standard clearance go no go decisions. Right, the way it works is the system has a clearance filter range of 1 to 6, okay, 6 being the highest priority, 1 being the lowest. So the person has a clearance filter value and the reader has a clearance filter value, okay, by default. In fact, by default, they're all at a value of 1, which means it's a tie. And in a tie, the employee wins and access will be granted if the other conditions are correct. The card expired date is not passed, card's not lost or stolen, whatever. But if I do raise the clearance filter value on a reader, okay, that will result in access denied no matter what, no matter if the person has clearance to that area. So by using clearance filters and reader groups, to keep it simple, you can really easily, lock out people from a building, except for those that you designate as essential personnel. Okay, and to do that, you'd create events to raise the clearance filter values on selected readers at the right time, either on a schedule or, most people do it through a manual action. Maybe on a map, they have an icon to, click the icon and it raises the clearance filter, and click this other icon and it lowers the clearance filter. And internally, you see here, to set it up, it's just a simple action in your event, set clearance filter level 3. And here I'd set it to the secondary entrances group that I've defined. And that's it. Okay, just invoke that event and you are doing your clearance filter thing. So this is a very popular feature, and even more so now for the contagion prevention or response here. Okay, there's other even simpler ways to enforce and minimize occupancy. If you do have entry-exit readers and you set up areas, you can enforce maximum occupancy settings for each of those areas. Okay, so in this case here, I've edited the area and I selected restrict access. Okay, which means if I reach the maximum, I'm going to restrict subsequent people from entering the area. And here I put the limit of 10 people. And maybe if it was 10, now it should be 7 or 6 because of social distancing. So go through your system and change those values to something more appropriate for today's situation here. And you can even get fancy and trigger alarms if that maximum is reached. Okay, so the workstation operators know about it. Okay. And here's just a basic one. I mean, over time, a lot of systems end up with clearance bloat, okay, where clearances have just been, assigned over the years, and personnel just end up with a huge clearance list per person. So it might be a good time to review those clearance assignments and kind of use that least privilege mentality. Don't give out clearances in case the person may need this in 2 years from now. Kind of start restricting it and have them ask if they really need clearance. That's where this new access workflow option comes into play, where if you do have that set up, you can have cardholders request clearances. So start with a small group and have them request if they need it. If they really need it, they're going to go through and request it. The other feature that I am pointing out here is that the workflow option has a nice review features. So the owner of the clearance that you designate can go in periodically and look at the list of who has clearance and take people out right through that web portal. They're not secure users, they're just portal users at this point. You don't need any special training or whatnot. It's just a quick web page here. So you see the list, you know, for this front door group, I have these 4 people in here. I can pick one and delete and get that person out of there. Okay, so just a good time to, you know, start restricting occupancy, you know, except for the essentials. Okay, and then if you do have the area controls, you can go further visually here, and this is through the monitoring station, and you can, you know, start displaying the active live lists of the people in the areas. Okay, you see down at the right-hand side, we have a simple dynamic view of people in a certain area. Okay, and you structure that to have thumbnails and other information for those people. And if you have the BACnet driver, okay, the BACnet driver includes a widget to display the area counts, okay, in real time for certain areas. So you have all your areas in a particular floor on a map and have these live values be updated. Okay, so yeah, a lot of different ways to get the information out to the operators so they can, you know, make those decisions. Oh, it looks like there's too many in there. I got to go investigate and, you know, move people along or whatever. Okay, so I'm almost afraid to ask, but Carol, do we have any questions or comments yet? Hey, Carol, you there?
Sorry, having an issue with the computer here. Sorry. There are a few questions. Let's see. What's the best way to trigger an event when maximum occupancy is reached at the time a card swipes?
The time of card swipe. Well, yeah, that's sorry. That's set up in the event. I don't have a screenshot here, but when you set up your event, you can select an action called, you know, maximum occupancy reached. And then you set the details of, okay, so what area does that apply to? And then the event can do its thing, you know, either do a pop-up or just a simple event in the event viewer or send an email out or whatever. Okay, it's up to you how you want to react to it. But yeah, it's sort of the standard event configuration.
The next question is, what version of CQR is this for with the map?
With the, with the map, yeah, with the BACnet. Good question. I believe it's 2.7, but we'll need to check. Okay, I know there's been some updates to the BACnet driver, but I believe it's 2.7. Okay, and that's a qualified answer.
Yeah, I can download the questions after the webinar and we can answer those and send them out to everybody.
Yep.
For the enforced area of occupancy rules, does it track unique value or is it only for total count? For example, John Smith enters and leaves the room 4 times. Does that count as one transaction in the maximum unit? Maximum limit?
Well, yeah, it's not transactions. It's, you know, known people in the area. So if John Smith enters, you have a +1 to your previous count. So you go from 9 to 10. And if he leaves, it goes back to 9. If it goes back in, it goes back to 10. Right. So it's just a, you know, real-time total of, you know, the quantity of people. Right. There's other occupancy area rules as well. And there's supervisor you could use. There's dynamic area manager. There's all sorts of, I don't know, call them hidden features of CQR that are there for the using. There's even the 2-man rule that doesn't really apply to occupancy. You can do a simple 2-man rule, you know, so 2 different cards have to be swiped within 10 seconds to open the door. Well, that's like anti-social distancing, right? You have two people together swiping their cards. That's not good. So,
The next
okay, is that?
No, there are three more questions. Then we're all on BACnet. Why does the BACnet driver need to display the area counts?
Why does it need to? Oh, it doesn't have to. It's just a nice visual, that's all. Just an extra data point, to show the numeric value on a map, okay? So it's totally optional.
Is the BACnet an item you have to request?
Yes, yeah, at this point, yeah, the BACnet driver is a separate option, the 9000 with a separate plugin you have to install. I mean, let's be honest here. The main point of BACnet is not to display area counts. It's to interface to Metasys and Siemens Apogee and other systems to exchange HVAC information. But we thought it was a nice use of that widget. Instead of displaying temperature values in a numeric way, let's display area counts as well.
The last question was just answered, so no more questions.
Yeah. Okay, well, good. Let's move on. Let's look at how we can help to manage checkpoints, health checkpoints, screening, whatever you want to call it. These are getting very important these days. The first technique here is to enforce the use of a main entrance only. Okay, so in this case, the employer, let's look at the map here. They used to have 4 main entrances, right? Buildings 1, 3, 4, and 5. And I could park in the nearest parking lot and just enter that building. Well, now the employer is saying, hang on, y'all have to go through building 1 first and get screened. We have a tent set up and all that. And then you're able to get to the other buildings. Okay, so this is easily accomplished in Secure using the after hours enabling reader function. Again, one of those hidden functions of Secure, I bet, right? How many actually knew about it? In this case, we're not using it after hours per se. We're using it at all hours. Okay, so what you do is declare building 1's reader as the after hours enabling reader. Okay, and you would set up readers 2, 3, and 4, or I guess what, 3, 4, and 5 here. They would be the after hours reader group. Okay, so on the north reader, if you look down here, you'd see enable the reader group. Okay, and what schedule do I want to use? And what's the reader group? Okay, so I put in my reader group here for the other 3 readers. And the schedule here is important because in the initial use case, we'd have it as a schedule for only the weekends, let's say, and maybe at night. But in this case, what I want to do is create a schedule that is active all the time, except for like, I don't know, 1 minute during the night sometime to reset everybody. So the next morning, they have to do the same thing if that's a daily occurrence. So just set up a simple schedule that, turns off and turns on for 1 minute at 2 a.m. or something, and then use that schedule for this application. Okay, so yeah, this has been a pretty popular technique for responding to a screening requirement. Okay, here's another technique to consider. This is from one of our apps engineers in the UK, and we have a feature called conditional access. Again, a pretty nice feature when you really get into it. In this use case is you want to have visitors, employees, they want to have them answer questions and confirm that they have not had symptoms and they have not traveled abroad in the last 14 days, for example. So what you do is you, first of all, don't give the person clearance for the reader. Okay, this is the way the conditional access works. You present the card to the reader and it triggers this conditional access event, and the 9000 monitoring station can be there set up with like a touch screen. I know it's touch screen, but it's only one touch. And the graphic map is just configured to look like this. And if you say, no, I have not traveled abroad, I have not had any symptoms, the fact that I'm pressing the no button will trigger the event to unlock the door. If I press yes, well, that can be an event to do something else, like alert the staff, or send up an alarm, or do something. Okay, and it's pretty easy to set up. It's just an action in your event configurator called allow conditional access cycle, and then you tell it what door to apply that to. So I press the no button. This event here is what's triggered, to complete the door opening process. Okay, so just something to consider. Try it out if it makes sense. You have to have like some sort of a touchscreen monitor or maybe a tablet, to actually have the responses there. Okay, just want to bring up this other slide here. We've got a lot of requests for the SDK for third-party integrations to help with COVID and other situations here. So the idea would be that the third-party app could be used to verify screening or the self-certification by the employee. Then when that's confirmed, that platform or application sends Secure a message somehow to turn on that card for access at its standard readers. And this integration can be, pretty high level, web services, okay, could be ODBC, it could even be an XML or CSV file. The app could just, dump a file into a certain directory and Secure listen to it and import the information, and it might include enable that cardholder data field. So we do have an example from a partner of ours called, I don't know if it's called Detrios. They have a little app they've developed for COVID situations. The cardholders are screened, okay, and then their app interfaces to Secure and turns on and reissues the cardholder basically on a daily basis. So if you have end users who want to go this way, that's great. Have them get connected with the connected program, and we'll take it from there. Okay, now another technique here. Our friend the Go Reader. It's been out about 3 years so far, and it's getting very popular because it is a great tool to use for remote employee badge verification. If you've all of a sudden disabled a lot of personnel records or turned off clearances, you can spot check employees, and make sure they're only essential employees. Okay, the Go Reader does use a clearance, so you can easily add and take out people from being accepted at the Go Reader device. Does random screening, okay, if you want to use that for additional vetting. And it does the mustering for emergency evacuation. So if there is some sort of evacuation, a fire, I don't know, some other event, you can have these in the parking lot and have people swipe and get pulled out of the building as far as Secure knows and out to the muster area. Okay, so yeah, it might be a nice complement to your Secure system, to add these devices. We have a 2.7 driver, a 2.8 driver. In 2.7 and above, we also, it's kind of cool here, we actually store up the latitude and longitude of each card swipe as it happens, and then store that in Secure, and back at the monitoring station, you can call up a journal and map those journal entries on an OpenStreetMap, to see where the thing's been used over time. Okay, so consider it. Also a little plug for our newest device coming soon. We have a nice one-piece Android device. The read head's built into the device now, so it's one thing to hold, versus the current solution's a two-piece device, an Android tablet or phone, and a separate little read head. Okay, here's a simple one that came up in talking to one of our customers. They have a supply closet. As we know, PPE is in demand these days. Short supply, masks, gowns, whatever. So they had the idea to limit the access to the storage closet to once per day per person. And thinking about it, it's like, well, that's fairly easy to do, right? Just set up a timed anti-passback on that closet door and set it for 24 hours or maybe 20 hours to give the person a leeway in when in the day they're able to get in there. Okay, so that's just going into the area, and areas don't need to have exit readers, right? They can be entry only, but this is anti-passback. I just select timed and put in the amount of time. In this case, 20 hours I put in here. Okay, simple stuff, but it's worth bringing back up to your customers. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jason, and he's going to talk about the soon to be released thermal camera, which can really help in in the health screening situation.
All right, thanks, Rick. As Rick just indicated, and all pun intended, this is a hot topic, and certainly one of the more frequent requests for information over the past several weeks. So we will be bringing to market here at the end of June the Tyco Illustra Pro Thermal Elevated Skin Temperature Solution. You can see here in this slide the components that make that up. So you have the dual image camera, which includes a 5 megapixel visual sensor, which is the top end of the market. You'll find some with 2 megapixels, some with 4, but certainly 5 would be the top end of the market, which gives us an advantage on the accuracy for face detection, which is the beginning of the thermographic temperature detection. So, a lot of capabilities there. This does also require the use of what's called a black body device. A black body device is not highly intelligent by any means, but it is quite scientific and is part of what provides ongoing calibration to ensure the best levels of accuracy. And in order to get around the many challenges of detecting skin temperature for screening, you want to have the most accurate based results, and it is just not possible with handheld units or kiosk-based units that do not use a black body to achieve that level of accuracy. And that's well documented between the FDA as well as the IEC 80601-2-59 standards. So those two are really what make the solution up. And then there's 9 different mounting options that you'll find for the flexibility of deploying the product. Everything from tripods to wall mount, conduit, back box, corner mount, ceiling mount, pendant mount. So, again, lots of flexibility there in terms of installation. But with that being said, you must be cognizant of the distance, heights, angles that are part of the installation guide to ensure that you get the best accuracy. So that's just a bit of an introduction here into the key components. And Rick, if you get. So as we look a little bit further at the specifics, one, I did mention the fact that this solution does have the ability and will be backed up by the UL medical mark to prove through the IEC 80601-2-59 2017 standards that this product does achieve a 0.3 degrees Celsius or 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit level of accuracy. You can see in the pictorial to the right, the typical type of recommendations and setup. This is thermographic solutions. So, the devices themselves will have the capability of being as accurate as anything can be on the market, but you do need to ensure that as much as the equipment is important, the environment and how you're setting it up is taking into account the right environmental conditions. So no wind, you don't want to have drastic temperature changes. You want to be about 16 feet away from glass entryways, away from heating and cooling sources. So environment is an important aspect because thermographic detection is sensitive to light, temperature, and wind. So this, unlike many products in the security industry, does require a lot of consciousness about the setup, and not all environments are ideal for doing this at the impact of not getting the most accurate results. So just something to be aware of. The black body device is absolutely pivotal. We sell this as a bundle, so every camera comes with a black body device to do that calibration with. And it's important that the black body device be set up in the line of sight of the camera, and you'll see in the image in the lower right-hand side how that black body device shows up in sort of that upper right-hand corner, either the right or the left, and then about that location is where you're going to want to be. And that is to ensure that you're never separating the line of sight, because the thermal view of the camera is constantly doing an ongoing calibration with that black body device. Now, in terms of the capabilities of this, we are, again, embracing and fully complying with the FDA's definition that this is a medical device. That is unlike a lot of the competition that you're finding in the market today that are trying to skirt around, the word diagnostic, and, this isn't for definitive diagnosis purposes. And that may be true, but it is about the prevention of the spread of disease, which by the FDA is a medical device, and by the way, in many other countries as well. So these solutions are meant to use an adjunct with a clinical thermometer for the confirmation of fever, which then would be used in the decision of triggering quarantine and isolation to prevent the spread of disease. So anybody who's telling you these are not medical devices is uneducated about the FDA standards, and really you should be very wary. So you'll have the peace of mind about this device carrying that level of accuracy, but with compliance to the IEC standards. And this image on the bottom of the slide, which is the actual web page of the Illustra Pro thermal EST camera, shows what an appropriate level of reading would look like. So the face and the thermal sensor needs to fill 240 by 180 pixels in order to have enough pixel density to give you that the 0.3 level degrees of accuracy. And what that means is at nearly 50 or just over 50% of the sensor view, there's no way mathematically to read more than one person at a time in order to be able to achieve that level of accuracy. So you will find our documentation is going to be in line with FDA recommendations of single person screening. There is no need to stop and read, as this static image probably gives the feeling of. You are just naturally walking through and picking up the temperatures, and as you come through the field of view, able to achieve that level of pixel point. And so the device is capable of reading temperatures at less resolution, and it will do so. But it's important to understand that you'll be outside of IEC guidelines, and you could effectively be doing up to 30 people at a time and up to 300 people, but again, not in compliance with FDA guidance or IEC standards of accuracy. So you would be doing so at the peril of a wider range of accuracy than the 0.3 degrees Celsius. So we want to make sure there's a clear understanding of how to achieve the best and most accurate results. We will provide this in 2 phases of release. The first phase includes a lot of integration capability to include integration to VMS and our own Victor Video Edge, as well as Exact Vision products. But the only stipulation will be in this first release, we'll send the video like we do for any other Illustra camera. It will not include the recording of temperature data. And that is because a face and temperature data constitutes a medical record. And there are other features and safeguards that need to be put in place before that can happen. So that will come in phase 2, where that will be permitted. Next slide, Rick.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the sort of myriad of integration and interaction capability of this. So what you're seeing here is people coming in, it funneling down to 1 person at a time at about 2-second intervals between, giving you the 30 people per minute maximum to comply with IEC standards, and then going on through the building when no alert is indicated. If an alert is picked up, then you could start with, at the bottom sort of left side of the slide here, just using the local web page of the camera to be able to view, as you saw on the previous slide, the web page that shows you both the visual and thermal view along with the alerting. The camera itself has a super bright LED just below the sensors in the center of that little window that will be able to be configured to pulse when it sees a low or a high temperature alert. There's an onboard speaker in the camera that is quite loud and provides a customizable alert notification. And then there is a physical relay that can be configured for normally open, normally closed, that you can send out for access control or intrusion or other purposes, like maybe a local sounder or a strobe. So a lot of interactive capability just between the camera and what you could do locally without any integration. And then additionally, going on to the access control, and you heard Rick mentioning about clearance filtering. And so you could, for instance, take this camera and with the output, trigger an alert off an iStar, which could be a panel-based event that changes the clearance filter levels and locks down the lobby. Also triggers an event action to send a contact tracing report so that it shows everybody that's been in the lobby in the last 15 minutes or used any of those readers, and allow you to then send email notification to the response team to say that a temperature alert has occurred. So lots of capability to integrate and take advantage of some of these other features that have been presented here today. The camera is capable of working with the Tyco cloud, or what will, I believe, be transitioning to cloud view here in the near future. But the difference is this first release requires a gateway to connect to the cloud. And in release 2, we will include the cloud connector firmware directly in the camera with no need for a gateway from that point forward. And of course, through the API 3 and OnViv interfaces are being able to integrate with our native Victor Video Edge, Exact Vision, again, as you would expect with any Illustra camera, and the addition of being able to have the overtemp alert that is generated into those platforms, giving you the situational management capabilities based on that new event that can be triggered. Again, the reminder is in the first release, what gets recorded to the recorders from this particular camera will not include the temperature or bounding box data in what gets recorded, and that will come in phase 2. Next slide. Okay, so just as I wrap up the last slide on this topic, and again, the reminder of the capabilities with integrating with the output directly to our access control. And in this case, you can see in the pictorial, the camera is tied to an input that is on the iStar Edge controller, but that could be an Ultra, a Pro, basically any of the inputs that we support today. And that then becomes the trigger for generating an alarm, which you would be able to manage through the Secure monitoring station and all of the traditional event activities, right? So, and if you know anything about Secure, you know the power of the product is around the event engines and the fact that you can completely change the behavior of access control based on the trigger of an event. So everything we talked about, for instance, driving the contact tracing report, changing clearance filters, using this with the after hours enabling reader feature so that people coming through, they present to a specific reader that enables their clearances when they get the temperature scanning, which is what turns on their access for the rest of the day. At midnight, that would reset and force them to have to go through screening the next day. So a way to help enforce that everybody is going through and getting a temperature screening at least once a day. So a lot of capability there, and of course, because of the alarm coming into Secure, you get the historical capability to go and check on that reporting and then all the related actions that took place. All right, Rick, unless there's something you want to add to that,
Great.
I think puts us at if there's any questions we want to take related to this.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thanks, Jason. I know this has been a very popular topic. It's not just for hospitals, it's for all sorts of different end users here that they're all wanting to play it safe and screen employees and visitors before entry to their facilities. Great. Okay. Should pause a few minutes, Carol. We have one more shorter section to go, but we can do a few questions.
Yeah, we have 2 questions. There was somebody wanted to know, there's a slide with a diagram that shows the black box in front of the person, but the video image shows the black box behind the person.
Yeah, so let me address that one. The black body device when you look at the installation guide, and that will tell you that the ideal is 2 to 3 meters, which would give you about 6.5 to almost 10 feet out from the camera as, sort of the ideal for reading. But the reality is, and this picture shows that you're seeing on this slide, the black body device being about 6.5 feet out from where the camera is. And obviously the gentleman is much closer than that at this point, but the reading starts out where that black body device is. And then as he's approaching the door, of course, the resolution increases. The thing that you really want to make sure is that the black body device is in line with, with as close to where you're reading. In this case, we're focused on the forehead region, right? So aligned with that level. And ideally, you want it to be as parallel to where the face reading is going to occur. So, in some cases, and depending on the setup like this, that the black body device may need to actually be closer. The thing and the reason for this picture to show the way that it does is they're using a tripod setup rather than a wall mount that comes off to the side. So the issue is you don't want to move the black body device from the camera because that would break your calibration and then cause inaccuracies. So the tripod in this case where he's walking in could be a trip hazard if you move it closer because of where they're coming through the door. So there are things like that you have to consider. So ideally that black body device would probably be about 2 to 3 feet out from the camera for this reading and this picture. But again, because of the trip hazard, and this is perfectly acceptable in what you're seeing here, it is in the upper right-hand corner, and it is within the 6.5 to 9.5 feet for being able to do calibration and drift management to the environment. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, is the intent of this setup to only display inside Secure or on a monitor near the camera?
No, and as discussed, it is the possibility of using a local web page, which could be on anything that can serve a web page, could be your mobile phone, a tablet, a laptop, a PC. So as long as you have a web browser, you could manage this directly to the web page from the camera itself without the need for anything else. If you're monitoring through Secure, certainly through the Video Edge interface, you would be able to monitor the live video. But again, that would not include the temperature and the bounding box coming from the Video Edge side. You would need to view the direct camera web page to see that in release 1. And then the same thing would apply for the VMS integrations.
Yeah, both too, right, Jason? You have, in most of these are manned. You have a local person on the web, and then remotely the Victor Video Edge could have the.
There's no restrictions that would prevent you from having both. That's correct.
Yeah.
And one last question. Do you have timelines for phase 1 and phase 2? Also, what version will Secure need to be for each phase?
There is 0 version requirement to Secure, as it is just an output. So any version supports an input, and so the question may be more appropriate to, depending on if there are restrictions around certain features like where clearance filtering was added, or the availability of the contact tracing reports. Those might be the decision about what version of Secure you need to be on if you want to use those features. But getting the alarm into Secure can be any version. And the answer on phase 1 and phase 2, phase 1 is targeted for the end of this month for shipping the initial Illustra Pro Thermal EST. Phase 2 does not have a date yet, as we've been really all hands to the pump and ensuring we can get phase 1 done. So, I would imagine that that's probably, going to be the latter part of this calendar year for phase 2.
And one
Good.
last question came through. Let's see, in regards to the thermal camera, if someone just ran to the gym and had to be checked to enter a building, would this result be positive? How long to wait after heating up from exercise to be checked?
Yeah, listen, that's a very pointed question for thermographic screening. Skin is different than core body temperature, and as this question highlights, it does require a transition time to acclimate and adjust. And even a simpler use case than the exercising, if you wear glasses, and even though the FDA recommends remove glasses and any facial obstructions like hair, hats, masks, if you're wearing glasses and you take them off just before you walk through, and you're reading the inner canthus region of the face, you would end up with getting 101 fever because what's sitting underneath your glasses becomes heated up by that fact. So the reality is, and to the second part of that question, it depends on the amount of temperature lift that's occurred, but typically, you're talking anywhere between 2 and maybe closer to 8 minutes for transition, especially, if you've been doing something like heavy exercise. And yes, the result would be that you'd come up with a false positive, which a clinical thermometer would confirm is not really a fever. So without proper transition time, that would result in a secondary screening necessary to determine whether it's febrile or not.
All right. So good answers, Jason. Wow. Good information there.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a little bit, Rick.
Yeah. You can tell. Okay, let's continue on to the last section here, which is basically the after the fact portion, right? You've done all these measures, you've done the screening, but you still, have an incident, a possible contagion. So how do you go back in history to do the tracing, right? And then there's two different subjects here. One is, in general, record everyone, not just your employees. The embedded visitor management feature of Secure is great in this case, because it's all one database, it's all one journal. So as you hand out visitor cards, get them logged in, they're logged in your database as well. And if you use active cards for your visitors, you assign them clearances for the, basic public areas and whatnot, those are recorded as well. So, just a quick note here to consider extending the Secure system out to visitor management and subcontractors, those are visitors as well. And, you'll just get a more complete picture of who is in the building. Okay, and then finally, and this is fairly new, we've had this out for about a month or so. We have a new report that we've created. It's called a Contagion report. It sounds kind of dire, but it's basically a contact tracing report. And the idea would be that for any one or possibly a handful of target personnel, who else has been in contact, with those personnel. And by contact, I mean who has also used the same readers within a certain amount of time. So here you see from this report with Evan Hill as the main target person, and he went through, this door, and oh, look at that, Ernest Wu went through the same door pretty close by. Okay, and now he's moving on to the main south door, and oh, look, these, 4 people have used that same door within a pretty close time frame. So it gives you a way to look back in history is to, who else should I, contact here and let know they might have been possibly exposed. So basically the report has a few different parameters to set. Those timers are defaulted to 1 minute before a card access and 15 minutes afterwards. Okay, but you can go into the report editor and configure those. And then here's the screen that shows when it first runs, we have a little prompting screen. You can select the person or multiple people.
Rick, if you want to show it live, I have my Secure running,
yep.
So we can take them through.
Okay, yeah, good. I'll switch over here. And then you have the start time for the Contagion, you know, when you want to start the thing. So let's move over to Ashley's screen and you can show the live view.
Are you able to see Secure?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, great. So yeah, both in Service Pack 6 of 2.7 and Service Pack 2 of 2.8, we added it. So I would go over to my data views and up under reports. The new report is called Software House 42 under Personnel. So I'm going to pull that up. And here's that same parameter query that Rick was showing you. Today, I'm going to put myself in the hot seat. Got a bad medical report back on me, Rick.
Uh-oh. Thanks for letting me know.
In this particular case, I don't want to restrict my door query because I want to know any doors that I came into contact with. And then I'm just going to change my time range. So today I came in after a late lunch. We'll say, I don't know, around 1:10. We're going to run that report. And while that's pulling, just to, you know, show you this cool feature, in 2.8 we launched that search bar at the top. So I could have even found that Contagion report here. I could have either done Software House 42 and pulled it up, or I could have done Contagion. Ooh, if I can spell. And I would have pulled that up as well. So cool feature. I hope you guys are using it. I certainly am. But here's the report. So it shows what door I accessed, and uh-oh, Rick, you're in the red. Within 2 minutes of I contacted that door, you also went through that door, and a couple other people within 15 minutes. So this is basically how it works. Obviously, this pulled up the information pretty quickly. I wasn't doing a large sweep. I've done tests where you can pull the full day's report of that person, and it takes a little longer to run. And I've come back with like 36 pages of information, but it's really great in how granular you can get in those query and those parameters of what you want to look for.
Yeah, great. Okay, and yeah, and this is a report. So if you want to tweak the layout, it's all the standard secure editing of reports. It's not a hard fixed thing that we created. So yeah, if you haven't used it yet, please be sure your customers are aware of it. And it's accessible or supported actually down to 2.6 now, confirmed. 2.6, 2.7, 2.8. So give it a try. Okay. Well, great. That is the end of our content here. I hope you've had a good view of all the different techniques available to you. We're constantly on the lookout for others, so please give us your feedback. And do we have any more questions, Carol, before we wrap up?
Let's see. There's only one question, and it was from before that I missed, and that is regarding Go Reader. Is Secure Go Reader available for iOS?
Why do you have to end on this type of question, huh? Unfortunately, no. Go Reader is available only for Android right now, Android 7, 8. We haven't done the iOS support based on priorities. As you know, Secure Go is available for both, right? The standard Secure Operators app, iOS and Android. Yeah, Go Reader at this point is just Android.
And that's it for questions. So I want to end by saying thank you, everyone, for joining today. Thank you, Rick and Jason and Ashley, for presenting. Hope everybody is staying well during this time. And again, the webinar is, actually, I didn't mention before, but the webinar is being recorded, and I'll send an email out shortly with a link to that, to the recording. So if you need a refresh or anything like that. And also, I will download all of the questions and have the team answer those and send that out as soon as I can. So thanks a lot, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.